Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see you guys. For those who braved the rain this morning, it's kind of getting out. The sunshine is coming out. What is this? The sunshine? It's a cloudy day, but either way, it's still a good day, right, Fred? Still a good day. Well, good to see everybody. If you haven't already, go ahead and grab yourself some coffee over there. We're going to go ahead and get kick-started, and we'll continue to come in as they come in. Super excited about this morning. We have Mr. Corey Dunigan with us, with Camera Coach. We're going to dive in just a moment, but I would love to see if there's any new faces in the room. If it's your first time, give me a wave. If not, that's totally fine. I thought I saw a wave. Hey, thank you. Glad to have you this morning. Thanks for coming. But just as a recap, the Meetup is every week. My name is Matthew Eaton. I'm the host here, the facilitator of the Meetup on Wednesday mornings. We're here for really educational inspiration to really ask and see stories of entrepreneurs and small businesses and local entrepreneurs in the community. We'll have to brainstorm at the end. We'll have a little bit more this morning, but Q&A time to dive into more of what Corey's doing. And if anything pops in your head, feel free to ask that later. And if you do have something that's just like, oh, hey, real quick, you can chime in, but just ask the first 15 minutes or so. We'll just kind of get to know Corey a little bit, let him share, and we'll go from there. Okay? Awesome. Well, Corey, good morning. So thankful to have you here. Thank you for giving us your Wednesday morning. And kind of give us a little bit of, who you are. Are you a native Wacoan? Where you come from? Kind of a little background. And then we'll kind of transition into, what's Camera Coach? How did you get started? Where did it come from? That sort of thing.
All right. Excellent. Well, sure. All right. Good. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Cool. Sorry. I have a background in education, so I was a teacher for a long time, so I like the whole engagement thing. So if I do that a lot, I'm sorry. I'm apologizing up front. So yes, my name is Corey Dunigan. I am not a native of Waco. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. So yes, born and raised there, and graduated late 90s. Came up to Waco for Baylor University and never went back after that. So I'm a little older than I look, so I get this a lot in my classrooms and when I talk to people. I'm 42, so I've been around a little bit longer than a lot of people assume, and so I've just really kind of enjoyed my time here in Waco. It's been about 20 years now, so so that's really kind of originally. I've got two brothers. I live here with my wife Megan. We've been married 7 years, and we've got 3 little kiddos who you'll see in just a little bit when we kind of roll through that presentation there. So, yes, and so I do own and operate Camera Coach. I mentioned I was a teacher as well, and so just a little bit of background. Once I graduated from Baylor in 2003, then I got certified to teach through MCC, and I've taught at La Vega, I've taught at Midway, I've taught at Rapport Academy, Waco High, so been around. And during that process, this has kind of come into play as well. So, and we'll talk some more about that as we go through.
So Corey, as you're doing all this teaching, you have a lot of experience and a lot of I would say stories and things that you've learned through the years. How did transitioning and teaching transpire to Camera Coach? Where's that bridge? How long ago was that? How long have you been doing Camera Coach? Kind of give us a timeline and a picture of that.
Okay, great. So my time at Midway was actually really pivotal for this because I just started talking to the photographer. I was a coach there as well, and so we do team pictures and that sort of thing. And just started talking to him about cameras, and he recommended a camera for me to purchase. And his name is Willie Gomez. He still works around here, and so I ended up buying that camera over Christmas break. And just playing around with it and being a teacher and having those times to really just kind of play around and tinker and take a break from the classroom with summer and Christmas and those sort of things. I just kind of dove in, head first, and I'm self-taught. So that's just kind of me. My dad actually used to repair all sorts of things for Radio Shack. Sorry, that's like some people may not know. But yeah, so I'm used to kind of tinkering with gadgets and that sort of thing. And once I grabbed a camera, it was all over. So that was about 2008. So it's been about 15 years when I first started with this.
Okay, and then over the last 15 years, I know that you're developing and you're growing and things like that. When you started getting into this industry of photography, teaching, and all this stuff, how did that kind of, on a trajectory, how did that kind of go over the last 15 years? Was it like, okay, my first year I had, a bunch of different sessions, or is it, no, this actually took time to grow and be methodical? Kind of bring us into a little bit behind the scenes there.
So two things. Really, I had no real intention of kind of going into the business of photography. I was just curious about it. And as it grew, and I was coaching, I would go to our track meets, and when I wasn't coaching, I'd take pictures, and then it was basketball games and it was other things, and then the parents started liking the pictures, and it's like, okay, well, we'll pay you a little bit for that, and then it just kind of became a thing that I did on the side. And so, long story short, I actually took a couple years off from teaching. So I was at Midway 5 years, and then I took time off to kind of develop the business, like develop photography. And at that time, it wasn't Camera Coach, it was actually Bright Light Media, and I was just doing portraits for teams and action shots and all those sort of things. And then had some unfortunate events that happened just in that second year, and I had to get back into a consistent income. And so I went back into teaching, which led me to Rapport Academy, and then eventually learning more about kind of entrepreneurship and then how to tie kids and education into it, because I'm still really passionate about learning. That's not going away because I'm not in the classroom.
Right.
So it's the last 17 years I was in a classroom for 15. So I mean, kind of have to have a little bit of passion for it to stick with it that long. And so I'm finding different ways now to engage, students and then just schools and that sort of thing.
So I love how you just expressed it. You're finding different ways to reach those kiddos and just meeting them where they are, because things change. I mean, you know that more than any of us in this room, because equipment changes pretty much every year. And it's like, oh, I got a new camera, and the next year it's like, oh, there's 2 new ones after that one. So in this ever-revolving world of trying to, target teenagers or these kids, they're learning, how do you stay fresh in such a, fast-paced environment, and with technology now, outpacing itself in a way? How do you keep up with that and keep it fresh?
Well, that's actually a great question, because I think I'm very fortunate in the fact that the basics of photography, they don't change. So I have a foundation that I can go to that kids really don't know. I mean, they think of photography as, I'm doing stuff for my Twitter. Wow. Yeah, that's not really a thing for them. But it's more of a TikTok for them now, the short form video content. And so that's all they know. It's like, oh, filters and all this. Like, no, well, why was it blurry? Why is it dark right here? How do you adjust it? Just all the basics, the little things that it never goes away. And so photography at its core is just learning to control light. And so you have to, whatever you're using, if it's your phone, your camera, whatever it is, you have to learn how that specific thing can be used to control your lighting. And then you go from there to composition, and then you look at other equipment. So there's so many levels to it that I'm just fortunate, because, like I said, I can always go back to the bedrock of okay, what is photography?
Yeah.
Do you know how to use a camera? What are the camera parts? Right? I mean, that's not going to change. Right. So yeah.
That's good, because I think you can apply that across the board in a lot of different industries, whatnot. Okay, you just stick to the basics and have those as fundamental pillars that you just lean on, then that will set you up to whatever changes as it really.
Yeah, and I've also been blessed. The last 2 places I was at, Waco High and Rapport Academy, I was able to develop the photography program. So that meant all the curriculum was mine. Half the equipment, a lot of times, was mine. So I was really, really invested in the projects and how do I get this to convey? Like, how do they learn this, right? And so now it's just, I still do the same things. It's all my content. It's all my, my things. And yes, the technology changes, but overall, it's the same message. It's just like, okay, well, now do we need a mirrorless camera? Well, for what? If you don't know how to use your phone, don't even go out and spend $2,000 on a camera. You got to learn the basics first, And so that stuff is still the same. And just being able to dig in the last 5 years of how to teach certain concepts
Yeah.
and still play around myself and grow myself has been a great situation.
Yeah. So on that topic of growth, over the last 15 years, and more for Camera Coach, what are some ways that you're growing as a company or as a business? But then what are ways that you're trying to keep things like what are things you're doing that are keeping people interested in you teaching things, whether or not, or how are you helping yourself be out there?
Great. So I'm trying to develop content that's really accessible. And when I say content, I've got a podcast, which I'll mention later. I've also recently started recording the podcast, the video of it, and then using that on YouTube and then some short form stuff. So I just recently got into TikTok. That's before I never get into TikTok. But it's one of those things where I was challenged. Actually, the last time I was here, just about my take on social media and how to reach a certain demographic, like certain groups. Because I did show up to one of the classes I used to teach, and I talked about my podcast, which is audio only, and they looked at me like I was, like a foreigner. It's like, oh, you don't just listen to stuff, do you? Okay, so you wouldn't listen to someone just talking, so that's just not a thing for them, And so learning as I'm going what content is going to access what groups. And so if I'm going to go and visit classrooms and talk to students about photography, well then I need content that they are going to engage in. And so I spent the last month just developing short form video content for TikTok, back behind the scenes stuff and little mini clips and things, so that when I do go out, there's already something there. And I was talking to my wife about that. I'm more of a proponent of slow growth and doing things intentionally and being able to kind of build so you can sustain whatever growth comes your way, right? Because there's a lot of, I guess, the mentality of, do something quick so you can make some money, but then if that goes well, then what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't handle it. So I would much rather have it trickle and grow and to where I can get my structures in place and I can actually have everything I need to where I can bring other people in. Like that's the ultimate goal for this is not really just for me to run a business and everything. My 6-year-old loves cameras. And so I'll let him do some little video clips with my phone, when we're doing stuff. And other students that I know are at a certain level, it's like, hey, come to a photo shoot, how are you editing, those sort of things. And starting to develop them to a place where they can grow and like, oh, you can start making a little money with this, right? And so that's really kind of my vision, is just to kind of let this be an avenue or vehicle, not just for me, but for others as well.
Yeah, I remember something from that time where you were talking about social media and the platforms. And one thing that really blew me away was that the perspective of us having, we can get caught up with trying to be so social on all these platforms, but I remember the specific question was, why don't you have TikTok? Like, why don't you just go and put some time into it? And your answer was just spot on, because it was everybody's situation is different. So your schedule versus my schedule, I may have a lot of free time in the afternoon where I can put into TikTok, but you have 3 kids, you have all these different things, and you're like, well, TikTok is this, okay, I'm not getting paid for it, so why would I put money into something that I'm not going to be able to provide or take care of my family or even the business? And so I think that was a really in-depth answer of just seeing the perspective of, as entrepreneurs, we have so many things on our to-do list. We said that before. How have you been able to manage, just the ups and downs? And you can even go through some of your slides that way, kind of help set that up as well.
I'll answer this and then we'll jump into the slides because I've covered a good bit of what's there already. And honestly, I think it just, it changes as you change, right? And so I did just, say, hey, TikTok's not really something I'm into. Instagram's not really a big thing for me. Facebook is where I get my most engagement, where I can have true conversations and people, it's just a deeper connection. And so that's what I focus my time on. And so being able to focus on the things that really have a return is a concept that not everyone has, just because you just think, well, I'm supposed to do what everyone else does, right? And, well, not everyone's doing what you do. So it doesn't work that way. And so just, for me, it's just a constant growth and change. And so, like I said, now I know who I need to reach if I'm going to start going into classrooms and doing those sort of things. And so TikTok became a thing because I knew that's the avenue for that connection. And so Instagram kind of wants to be some of everything, and so I don't really mess too much. I just copy things into Instagram basically, and so my primary things now are TikTok and Facebook as far as social media goes. So that's just it, and it's probably going to change, in the future. It just does, and so there's no one answer. There never is. It's just kind of even for if you're in college and you get out of college and you get married and then your life changes and different things suit those different seasons. So just knowing how to adapt and taking the time to assess when those changes happen and what needs to happen. So
I think that's critical. How many of us in the room have a hard time just slowing down and like, oh, I need to make time for this. I think that's pretty much everybody. And if we can get that component down and just just take a deep breath, slow down. Okay, what do I have in front of me? What's going to be the best solution? What's the best direction? Who are the best people I can get in contact with to help me navigate this? Because you don't have to do it alone. That's another reason why Startup Waco is here. We're a community. We want to come together, collaborate, and really talk through these things so we can help each other and support each other. So I'd love for you to go through some slides and kind of go from there.
Excellent. All right. So obviously we talked about the business there. There we go. So I've covered most of this here. So I've taught 15 years, freelance photographer since 2009. Concentration has been sports, portraits, headshots, events, and commercial products. Really starting to get into short form video, which is what TikTok is. And so that's another thing, just learning how to do a little bit on the video side. I do have a couple of professional certifications with Adobe. So that's the editing side of things, so Photoshop and Illustrator. I'll have a certification for small business and entrepreneurship as well. All of that tied into my high school teaching, and so getting a chance to get those certifications while I was teaching helps me not only in the classroom but after the fact as well, still having those. So I've been married 7 years, got 3 kids, and we'll go ahead and jump to that right there. So that is the family, and so we've got Andrew who's 6, Nathaniel who's 4, Callie is now 1, so it's a little older of a picture, and I felt bad, like, oh, I'm a photographer, and okay, so.
The irony.
Yeah, I know, right? So I'm taking pictures for everybody else. With 3 little kids, life is crazy, and so this is just being able to slow down and do this for us is a challenge, really. So my wife is a graphic designer. She's now freelance. We've transitioned the last year to a slower pace because we want to invest in our kids and our home. And when you're constantly going, you can't do it. So that's kind of part of where we're at. And that's the family. Let's see if there we go. So I boiled down camera coach into 3 things. So capturing photos, obviously as a photographer, so that's kind of what I do, and focusing on the quality, learning and growing in that. And then connecting with people is really just, I've grown to be a people person. I was actually like the shyest in my family. And then teaching really brought me out of my shell. And so I like talking to people. If they're taking pictures, they pull out a camera and say, hey, what lens you got there? There's nothing wrong in those conversations, just kind of like in people and community and, that kind of thing. So, and then developing. So I still learn myself. I still play around and just try to have that time for me, and then help others learn as well. So those 3 things: capture, connect, and develop. Website is photocameracoach.com, and oh gosh, sorry about that.
It's all right.
So here's some sample work, some recent stuff here. So I mentioned sports photography there on the left. Midway and Vanguard are the primary districts I'm working with right now. All of Vanguard athletics, most of the middle school athletics on the girls' sides for both River Valley and Midway Middle School. A little bit at Midway High as well. Headshots. I did not mention this much, but I also have a photo studio that I developed, kind of helped to build, I'll say collaboration with Road Media. And so I have a space now where I can do headshots and I can do senior photos and that sort of thing. And so that's a cool new thing for me, having a space that's a permanent space where I can kind of do my work. Both of these are done in the studio right here. So current clients, long list there. I'd say my biggest client actually is Baylor Career Center. They put on two career fairs, and the first one in the fall. For the last few years, I've done headshots for their students at the career fair. So usually to the tune of 400 to 500 students coming through the line in about 3 hours. And so it's booking it. It's hey, how's it going?
That's called a snapshot right there.
It's work, but I mean it's fun. So a number of others, not to prioritize or anything, but that's really a fun one for me since I graduated from Baylor. So we'll keep it moving, I guess here. There we go. All right, this one's supposed to actually have a second. There it is. All right. So I mentioned the podcast. The podcast is called Full Frame with Corey. And so we'll play on full frame cameras, if you know cameras. And so there's a link to that. You can find all this through the website at photocameracoach.com. Social media, I mentioned Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, primarily Facebook and TikTok. Instagram is just kind of, a melding of the two things that I put from those two. And then YouTube is my most recent thing. Just really doing more video content and learning videos. Has its basis in photography, but it really is a different animal. And it's editing and audio and lighting and just kind of the concepts because, it's pictures with sound, right? And so there you go, sound. If you're recording and, somebody drives by or, whatever, or someone slams a door or, little kids walk in the room, it's like, okay, well, you can't really do much about that unless you're just going to retake it, And so, photography is great because you don't have to really worry about that. You can go to a basketball game where a team's getting slaughtered and get a good shot and no one knows, right? So it's just it's just kind of it. So, I do have something that I've really just kind of tried to develop a little bit more, and that's my Patreon, which is a way to build a subscribership, if you will. Some of the things I'm doing aren't paid. So doing a podcast is paid. Classroom visits, paid, those sort of things. But I love doing it. But I have a family of 5. So trying to find ways to monetize some of the content, not all of it, because I feel I don't want to be selfish with the content, but also want to be wise in how I do things. So developing my tiers and Patreon, which just is, like I said, it's a way to build a subscriber base. And so that's there as well at patreon.com/cameracoach. So I believe that's the last one.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So,
I would love to ask just a kind of a follow-up question
Yeah.
too. With where you are currently, now looking ahead, let's just to focus on where we come from, where we are. Now looking ahead, what's kind of the foresight for Camera Coach? Because it looks like, and it sounds like you've got a lot of things that you really that have structured well. This isn't. I don't feel at all that you've got a lot going on. Yes, but you have a very concise vision and focus on. Okay, no, I'm building this very strategically. So what's your strategic vision moving forward for the future?
Great question. My overall hope is to balance the rat race of photography with the content and the photo education side. Because I have a passion for both, but also, I mean, it's not easy doing photography. It's retail and a lot of other things. And so if I'm not careful, I know that can overtake me and then the other stuff gets drowned out. And then I'm like everybody else. So, I hang my hat on not just being a photographer, but having the experience in the classroom and having the knowledge and the content to help people learn about photography. And so keeping that vision in front of me, my next couple of years really is just to develop better processes for my photography so that can become more streamlined and create more time and give me more energy towards the content and the connecting with others. Because I'll do a summer camp this summer. I'm going to do a spring break mini camp, actually, that I'm going to talk about later on this week on social media. Those sort of things. And I really want to develop the YouTube and the podcast into something just really consistent, And so ultimately that's it, is kind of working on my processes so that I can build the content side into something that's just as structured and effective as the photography side.
That's good. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and move into the Q&A side of it. So if you guys, let's give Corey a round of applause. Thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, and just really being an inspiration for really build the internal operations of your business and have it structured in a way where you know what you're doing. So I would love to open it for Q&A. Feel free to please raise your hand, wave, jump, holler, be gentle when you holler. But any questions, any thoughts?